Hello and welcome to Vantage. I'm Alison LaGrange. Let's get started. West Asia saw a rare sight today. After 2 years of bloodshed, there was peace. Hamas released 20 Israeli hostages. All of them are back home tonight. They were held since October of 2023, locked in tunnels and caught in the middle of a brutal war. The release was handled by the Red Cross. The hostages were driven out of Gaza, escorted by the Israeli army, and airlifted to their families. On the other side, Israel freed Palestinian prisoners, almost 2,000 of them. In buses, they returned to Gaza and the West Bank. The ceasefire took effect last week, and so far it is holding. But will it continue to hold? Will peace be finally restored in Gaza? And what does the future hold? We'll bring you the full story. Also on the show, how the conflict between Pakistan and the Taliban is intensifying, how Muhammad Yunus refuses to recognize Hindus in Bangladesh are targeted, and all about the India-Canada reset, and why India and the US are building a strategic reserve for rare earths. All of this and more coming up. But first, the headlines.
Russia says there are currently no plans for a call between Presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, after the US leader warned he might send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Trump has been mulling potential supplies of the long-range missiles to Kiev via European allies since his meeting with Putin in Alaska in August failed to produce a peace deal. Police in China detained dozens of pastors of one of its largest underground churches over the weekend in the biggest crackdown on Christians since 2018. The detentions, which come amid renewed China-US tensions after Beijing dramatically expanded rare earth export controls last week. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has called for the pastors' immediate release. French President Emmanuel Macron accuses rival political forces of fueling instability by undermining newly reappointed Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu, whose government faces immediate threats of censure. The hard-left France Unbowed Party and far-right National Rally have threatened to topple the new cabinet, which was unveiled late Sunday. A passenger bus accident in South Africa kills at least 42 people, including workers from Malawi and Zimbabwe. The bus was traveling to Zimbabwe when it crashed on Sunday after the driver apparently lost control. South Africa has a busy road network with a high rate of road deaths. And the Nobel Prize in Economics is awarded to 3 researchers for their work on how technology drives and affects growth. The Economics Prize is the only Nobel not among the original 5 created in the will of Swedish scientist Alfred Nobel, who died in 1896.
West Asia hasn't seen a day like this for 2 years. Instead of cries, there are cheers. Instead of protests, there are celebrations. Instead of bombs, there are smiles. Because today, Hamas released the Israeli hostages in their custody. All 20 living hostages were freed today. They are back home after more than 2 years. One can only imagine their trauma. Captured on the 7th of October 2023, hidden away and locked up in tunnels, surrounded by bombs and gunfire. And now, finally home. The day began in a celebratory mood in Israel. Dozens of people began gathering in Tel Aviv early in the morning. Hours later, the crowd swelled into thousands. Take a look. For Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, this was a big moment. He is deeply unpopular right now. Many Israelis accuse him of prolonging the war and delaying the hostage release. So Netanyahu capitalized on the moment. He spoke at the Israeli parliament today with Donald Trump.
It is a good feeling. Isn't that nice to say? You know, I just said the hostage. First time I said the hostages are back. It feels so good to say it. No, and my personality actually is all about stopping wars, and it seems to work. It seems to work.
Mr. President, today we welcome you here to thank you for your pivotal leadership in putting forward a proposal that got the backing of almost the entire world. A proposal that brings all our hostages home.
The hostage release was handled by the Red Cross, a global humanitarian group. This morning, Hamas handed over the hostages to Red Cross. Then Red Cross drove them out to the Israeli military. 7 hostages were freed from northern Gaza, the remaining 13 from the south. And this was unfolding on camera. Footage showed Red Cross vans driving through roads in Gaza. Once in Israel, they were escorted by IDF trucks. The hostages were received at the Reem military base, and after that they were airlifted in helicopters, some to hospitals for checkups and others to their families. Take a look. Hamas was visible throughout this process. Forget taking a step back. The group deployed its fighters during the hostage release. Many of them stood guard with guns in hand. It makes you wonder, how will the next stage of talks go? Because Donald Trump is asking Hamas to disarm. But today, Hamas was openly flaunting their weapons. We'll focus on that later. For now, let's look at what happened in Israel. Trump's deal required Israel to release Palestinian prisoners, around 1,700 detainees from Gaza, and 250 other Palestinian prisoners. Some 38 buses took them home from the prison, and some of the prisoners were dropped off in Ramallah, and others were returned to Gaza. Like the hostage release, this too unfolded on camera. Take a look. So, who are these prisoners? The 250 prisoners are convicts. Many of them were arrested back in the 2000s. But the 1,700 detainees are different. Most of them are young men captured by Israel's military during the war. Reports say even teenagers under 18 years of age. Rights groups have flagged torture and abuse in Israeli prisons. So for them too, it's the end of a trauma. The question is, what's next? Well, the ceasefire took effect on Friday, and so far it's been holding well. Well enough for Gazans to begin returning home. Thousands of them are trekking up north to Gaza City. They are moving up the coastal road, mostly on foot. They are hoping to return home, but home may not exist anymore. Just look at these pictures from Gaza City. It used to be a packed urban center. Now it's been reduced to rubble. Most of the buildings and houses have been destroyed. Take a look. The only good news, humanitarian aid is now back. Some 173 trucks entered Gaza on Sunday. It's less than the 600 to 700 trucks that entered during the January ceasefire. Nonetheless, it's much needed help. We know the mood right now is celebratory, but the finish line is far away. The key is to build on this truce and to pursue peace. Whether that happens or not is our next story. There's one man who is being credited for all of this. Donald Trump. The US president arrived in Israel this morning, a lightning visit before he headed for Egypt for the Gaza Peace Summit. He was met with immense fanfare. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was at the airport waiting to personally greet him. From there, it was a short ride to the Knesset. That is the Israeli parliament. Trump and Netanyahu both rode together in the Beast, that is Trump's presidential limousine. At the Knesset, Trump was met with even more fanfare. There were signs thanking him. There were people sporting Trump the Peace President hats. At the Knesset, Trump signed the guest book and he called it a new beginning for West Asia. He even met with some hostage families. From there, it was straight to the podium. The last US president to speak to Israel's parliament was George W. Bush in 2008. So this was clearly a special occasion. But before that, there was a standing ovation.
יושב-ראש הכנסת.
Then came Benjamin Netanyahu. He called Trump the greatest friend of Israel. He praised the US president's leadership. He nominated Trump for the Israel Prize. That's Israel's highest award. Trump will be the first non-Israeli recipient of it.
We welcome you here to thank you for your pivotal leadership in putting forward a proposal that got the backing of almost the entire world. A proposal that brings all our hostages home. A proposal that ends the war by achieving all our objectives. A proposal that opens the door to an historic expansion of peace in our region and beyond our region.
From there, it was all Trump. The US president spoke for 65 minutes in front of the Israeli parliament. Most of it was praising Israel, talking about his relationship with Netanyahu, and talking about how it is time for peace in West Asia.
This is not only the end of a war. This is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism, whose partnership did so much to make this momentous day possible. You know who I'm talking about. There's only one, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Bibi, please stand up.
The Trump-Netanyahu bonhomie was on full display clearly. So much so that US President even asked for a pardon for him.
Hey, I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon? Give him a pardon. Come on.
There was a brief disruption, though. An opposition lawmaker waved a sign reading, "Recognize Palestine." But for the most part, Trump dominated the stage. He said that Hamas would be disarmed, calling it the historic dawn of a new West Asia.
Years, and I've seen it over and over again.
להוציא אותו מיד, החוצה. להוציא גם את חבר הכנסת כסיף מהאולם. להוציא אותו מיד. Sorry for that, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Please.
That was very efficient. But now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over. And as the dust settles, the smoke fades, the debris is removed, and the ashes cleaned from the air, the day that breaks on a region transformed, and a beautiful and much brighter future appears suddenly within your reach. This is now a very exciting time for Israel and for the entire Middle East, because all across the Middle East, the forces of chaos, terror, and ruin that have plagued the region for decades now stand weakened, isolated, and totally defeated.
And talking about West Asia, Trump added that a deal couldn't have happened without the US striking 3 of Iran's nuclear sites earlier this year. He even talked about Tehran, adding that it would be great to have a peace deal with them.
Yet even to Iran, whose regime has inflicted so much death on the Middle East, the hand of friendship and cooperation is open. I'm telling you, they want to make a deal. That's all I do in my life. I make deals. I'm good at it. I've always been good at it. And I know when they want.
From there, it was a quick hop to Egypt for the Gaza Peace Summit. Trump is co-chairing it with the Egyptian president. Over 20 world leaders are in Sharm el-Sheikh. And what does this mean for West Asia? Our next report tells you.
Sharm el-Sheikh, a sun-baked resort town at the southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula, is buzzing. Flags flap along the seaside promenade. Police vehicles hum past. A fleet of limousines carries some of the world's most powerful leaders toward a single goal, the end of the 2-year-long war in Gaza. It is a gathering that reads like the who's who of global politics. Donald Trump, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Emmanuel Macron, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Keir Starmer, and a host of others. All convening under the Red Sea sun to attempt what so many before them have failed, lasting peace in one of the world's most intractable conflicts. Once a sleepy fishing village, the town has long carried a strategic significance that belies its sun-drenched beaches. For decades, the town's fate was tied to the ebb and flow of geopolitics. Israel occupied it during the Suez Crisis of 1956. It was finally handed it back to Egypt in 1982. That year, under Hosni Mubarak, Sharm el-Sheikh was reborn as the City of Peace, a label that has stuck. Today, Sharm el-Sheikh is a world away from its naval base past. The town is a preferred venue for international summits. But can it bring peace to West Asia? This summit, co-hosted by Trump and al-Sisi, carries extraordinary ambitions. The official line from the Egyptian presidency frames it as an effort to end the war in the Gaza Strip. The guest list reads like a geopolitical map. The Palestinian president is there, so are European leaders, Arab monarchs, and a string of prime ministers from Canada to Indonesia. According to diplomatic sources, the United States, Egypt, Qatar, and likely Turkey would sign a guarantee document during the summit. Hamas will not be represented at the summit.
We, the United Kingdom, stand ready to play our full part. In particular, we stand ready in relation to monitoring the ceasefire and decommissioning Hamas capability and weaponry. And that's drawing on our experience in Northern Ireland and the IRA, which we dealt with in particular in relation to decommissioning. So congratulations.
It's about ensuring that there is a framework that allows for the restoration of security. And so we will work with the United States of America, with the countries of the region, the European countries, and therefore the Arab countries, to ensure that there is this framework that allows for an international stabilization force and that provides a structure in support of the administration that will be established for Gaza. But also notably absent are Israeli officials. The Israeli Prime Minister was invited, but he is not attending. The official reason is a Jewish holiday. But reports suggest Turkey opposed the presence of Benjamin Netanyahu, prompting a last-minute cancellation. India's Minister of State for External Affairs, Kirtivardhan Singh, is representing India. The plan is usher in a new era of regional security. Beneath the rhetoric, however, lies a tangle of unresolved questions. Who will govern Gaza in the future? What role, if any, will Hamas have? Will Trump's 20-point peace plan hold sway over leaders who have been negotiating and mediating this conflict long before his arrival? As the U.S. president co-chairs this summit in Egypt, here's something to note. Summits rarely deliver clean resolutions. They offer moments of potential peace, punctuated by symbolic gestures. The question is, will Sharm el-Sheikh be any different?
Imagine being in captivity for more than 2 years. Imagine being secretly whisked away through dingy tunnels. Imagine hearing bombs fall all around you. That was life for Israeli hostages in Gaza, a bargaining chip for Hamas, a mission for Israel, and a campaign for protesters. Through talks, bombs, and destruction, they waited in Hamas custody, a wait that seemed endless until recently. Today, they're a headline in the world media, but behind those headlines are real people with real families. Our next report tells you their story.
This isn't a hug. It's an outburst of joy, relief, and love. Guy Gilboa's family has waited 738 days for this moment. His father, draped in the Israeli flag, locks his arms around him. If he could, he would probably never let go. As the tears and cries fade, the family is whole again. No more empty seats at the dinner table. Guy Gilboa is one of the 20 Israeli hostages freed today. All of them were captured by Hamas on October 7, 2023. More than 2 years and relentless fighting later, they are back home. Like Guy, Eitan Abraham Moore is also reuniting with his family. Shrieks of joy fill the room as his father embraces him. Beside them, Eitan's mother has a Jewish prayer on her lips. Elsewhere at the Reem military base, Matan Zangaker rushes to embrace his mother. Einav has been a vocal representative of the hostage families. She voiced their demands resolutely, but today, as she saw her son after 2 years, Einav couldn't hold back. The resolute leader became a relieved mother. Behind these reunions are stories of trauma. Guy Gilboa was a 24-year-old, attending a music festival. Eitan Moore was a security guard at the same festival. And Matan Zangaker was kidnapped from his own home, along with his fiancée. Different stories, different lives, all caught in tragedy. Israelis are not the only ones celebrating today. There is joy and relief in Gaza and the West Bank too. Hundreds of Palestinians have been freed from Israeli jails. Some serving prison sentences, others held after the start of the war. Rights groups have decried their treatment in Israeli jails, often tortured, abused, and raped. In Ramallah, thousands gathered to welcome the freed prisoners, some of them younger than 18.
It's an indescribable feeling. I still cannot believe it, thank God. We used to wait for this joy to happen, but I am not feeling it because it was a big surprise. We faced an extreme psychological pressure, and one could not believe until last second.
For these families, the suffering is over, but for the region, there is much to be done. Global agencies declared a famine in Gaza earlier this month. More than 54,000 children are malnourished. Until their suffering is also alleviated, there can neither be peace nor progress.
And now let's shift our attention to another flashpoint, the escalating violence between Pakistan and Afghanistan. The two sides exchanged fire over the weekend, and this was no small clash. Both countries claim to have killed dozens of troops, but their stories don't match. Pakistan says it killed over 200 Taliban fighters. The Taliban claims more than 50 Pakistani soldiers were killed. Neither figure has been independently verified. But what is clear, this was their biggest military exchange since the Taliban took power in 2021, and the timing is important. The border flare-up coincides with a high-stakes visit to India. Afghanistan's Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi is in New Delhi, and his presence has ruffled feathers in Islamabad. Let's tell you what's happening. Now, starting with the border clashes. The fighting began late on Friday night. The Taliban accused Pakistan of carrying out airstrikes. They said a market was hit in Afghanistan's Paktika province and that Pakistani planes entered Afghan airspace over Kabul. Islamabad has denied the charges. By Saturday night, the Taliban launched a counterattack. They crossed the border and targeted Pakistani posts. Kabul says they struck with force. The Taliban claimed 58 Pakistani soldiers were killed and 9 of their own fighters died. And 20 Pakistani army posts were captured. Islamabad gave a different account. The Pakistani military claimed that they killed over 200 Taliban fighters. According to Pakistan, only 23 Pakistani soldiers were killed, and they took 21 Afghan army posts temporarily. Again, none of these claims can be independently verified. But one thing is certain, there were a high number of casualties. On Sunday morning, that was yesterday morning, Kabul made it official. The Taliban government confirmed the attacks. They repeated their claims of victory and minimal losses. Pakistan called it a serious provocation. They said their strikes targeted militant infrastructure and that they had shown restraint in their response. As the fighting intensified, diplomatic channels were activated. Qatar and Saudi Arabia urged both sides to stand down. Yesterday afternoon, a statement was issued. It came from Amir Khan Muttaqi, the Taliban foreign minister who is in New Delhi right now. He said the Taliban had achieved its objectives and that the situation was under control. Muttaqi also said Afghanistan was ready for talks. Both sides have stressed that they wish to avoid civilian casualties, but the damage to relations may already be done. These clashes mark a new low in Pakistan-Taliban ties. The relationship has been getting worse for months. Pakistan says the Taliban is giving shelter to terrorists, a claim that the Taliban denies. The war of words escalated even further when Muttaqi issued this warning.
ये तो 400, 500, 800, 1000 किलोमीटर अंदर पाकिस्तान के अंदर जंग हो रहा है, तो ये खुद कंट्रोल करे। हमने जब इतना बड़ा अफगानिस्तान कंट्रोल किया है और 40 साल की लड़ाई के बाद कंट्रोल किया है और बहुत कम वसाइल पे हमने कंट्रोल किया है, अब खुद को कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकता है। हम जीरो टेंशन के तरफदार हैं और अगर और नहीं चाहता है तो फिर अफगानिस्तान के पास और रास्ते भी हैं।
Back in Islamabad, Pakistan lodged a protest. On Saturday, the Afghan ambassador in Pakistan was summoned. This was over India's joint statement with the Taliban-led government. The statement was issued in New Delhi, and this was after talks between Muttaqi and India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. It mentioned Jammu and Kashmir as a part of India. It also condemned the terror attack in Pahalgam. Afghanistan expressed solidarity with the people of India, and both sides agreed to fight terrorism in the region. And they called for peace and mutual trust between neighbors. Islamabad objected to this joint statement. It's obvious why Pakistan had to lodge a protest. The Taliban stood with India. They backed India's position on cross-border terrorism, and that put Pakistan on the spot. Islamabad did not appreciate being called out. For decades, Pakistan supported the Taliban. It hoped to gain strategic leverage inside Afghanistan. But today, that strategy has unraveled. The Taliban is no longer following Pakistan's lead. It is seeking a different path, one that is more independent. And that shift is becoming increasingly clear. Pakistan is struggling to come to terms with this new reality. In 2006, Muhammad Yunus was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Almost 2 decades later, he is trying to justify communal violence. In Bangladesh, Hindu groups say they faced over 2,000 attacks since Sheikh Hasina's exit last year. Homes burned, temples destroyed, families displaced. Yet, there are no arrests. Now, Prime Minister Yunus is dismissing all of it, calling the violence fake news and blaming India for spreading lies. Our next report brings you the details.
There's something deeply unsettling about watching a Nobel laureate explain away violence, especially when the violence is visible. In burnt temples, displaced families, and the silence of a frightened community. Since Sheikh Hasina's ouster in August last year, Hindu groups in Bangladesh say there have been over 2,000 attacks. Homes were looted, idols were smashed, people were harassed. Even United Nations officials have expressed alarm. And how many culprits has Muhammad Yunus arrested? A grand total of 0. Now, in a new interview, Yunus didn't just downplay the violence, he denied it outright. According to him, there's no anti-Hindu violence, no communal targeting. Just normal neighborhood conflicts. And the real villain? Not the mobs, not the arsonists, but India, for allegedly spreading fake news.
One of the specialties of India right now is fake news. A barrage of fake news.
When pressed about the attacks, Yunus offered another curious explanation. Hindus, he said, had largely supported Sheikh Hasina. So the attacks weren't religious, they were political. It is almost like a rhetorical sleight of hand. A way for the Yunus government to wash their hands off accountability.
I would say government is very alert on that one because this is the one thing that India is always pushing, that we are bringing pressure.
For Yunus, India is the easiest explanation for everything that's gone wrong. Bad headlines, India's fault. Global outrage, Indian propaganda. Communal tension, Indian mischief. This anti-India posture isn't new. It's the standard survival kit for the Yunus government seeking legitimacy after Hasina. Blame India, pose as the nationalist, distract the masses. It's a strategy that wins applause at home but loses credibility abroad. Yunus even went a step further. He urged Bangladesh's Hindus to stop identifying as Hindus.
My message to them when I meet them as a group of community leaders is don't go back and say, I'm a Hindu, so protect me. Always say, I am a citizen of this country. I'm entitled to all the protection. The state is supposed to give it to me. So, then you've a bigger coverage.
That is Yunus's solution for this. Call yourself Bangladeshis instead of Hindus. For decades, Muhammad Yunus has been the global face of moral capitalism. The banker to the poor, the soft-spoken reformer, the noble icon who promised that economics could be humane. But when faced with the persecution of an entire community, that moral clarity seems to have vanished. There's no empathy, no urgency, only dismissal and semantic gymnastics. When a leader refuses to acknowledge targeted violence, it legitimizes it. It tells the perpetrators that they can act without consequence. It also alienates millions of Hindus who have been part of Bangladesh's story since its birth. The tragedy is not that Muhammad Yunus is wrong. It's that he's willfully wrong. And millions of Bangladesh's Hindus are paying the price for his convenient vision of peace.
A major reset is unfolding before our eyes. A reset between India and Canada. It seemed impossible this time last year. Then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had accused India of murder. High commissioners had been expelled. Visa services were put on hold. Every day the ties spiraled further down, but not anymore. Today marked a big day in the India-Canada reset. The Canadian Foreign Minister, Anita Anand, is visiting India. This morning she met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and afterwards she held talks with Foreign Minister S.J. Shankar. Both ministers were optimistic about the reset, and they called for rebuilding cooperation.
India-Canada bilateral relations have been steadily progressing in the last few months. We are working to restore and reinvigorate the mechanisms necessary to advance our partnership. So when we look at Canada, we see a complementary economy, we see another open society, we see diversity and pluralism, and we believe that that is the basis for a close, sustainable and long-term cooperative framework.
The meeting that our officials had relating to security and law enforcement just a few weeks ago here was very productive, and that dialogue will continue. Both of our governments agree on the importance of elevating the relationship going further.
India and Canada have also released a joint statement. We'll look at the three main highlights. Number one, India and Canada will resume ministerial talks on trade and investments. These talks will be held at an early date. And why is this important? Because trade was a casualty of the souring ties. In 2022, India and Canada launched talks for a free trade deal. By 2023, they had held 6 rounds of discussions. But in September, it was put on hold. And now, thanks to the reset, trade is back on the table. Both sides call trade a cornerstone of this relationship. And it's clear why. In 2023, India-Canada trade stood at $9 billion. In 2024, that rose to $23.6 billion. So, despite the tensions, trade has grown. Free trade could unlock even more potential. Next is highlight number 2. India and Canada agreed to expand energy cooperation. Again, a ministerial dialogue has been resumed. Plus, both sides agreed to expand natural gas and cooking gas trade. India will continue to buy uranium from Canadian suppliers. And further, Canada will share its mining expertise with India. And finally, highlight number 3. Focus on people-to-people cooperation. A joint working group will boost higher education exchanges, and the goal is to expand academic and institutional ties. Also, both countries will scale up tourism and professional mobility. Again, this was a casualty of the souring ties. India and Canada had reduced consular services, and there was a bid to scale back people-to-people interactions. That too is being reversed. But what about the point of contention, specifically the Khalistan issue? Canada accuses India of murdering a Khalistani on Canadian soil. His name was Hardeep Singh Nijjar. India has, of course, denied the allegations. In fact, New Delhi has long accused Canada of harboring Khalistani separatists. Now, did those issues make it to the talks? Neither minister mentioned it in their opening remarks. It's also not mentioned in the joint statement. Instead, the statement praises the recent security cooperation, and it also emphasizes that rule of law is a shared value. Basically, India and Canada sidestepped the bone of contention. They haven't abandoned their concerns, but they have put them on a back burner. The question is, why? Now, one reason is the leadership change in Canada. Their anti-India crusade was led by Justin Trudeau. But Trudeau was replaced by Mark Carney in March. And Carney is more pragmatic. He invited Prime Minister Modi to the G7 summit in Canada, and he also greenlit the ongoing reset. Reason number 2 is Donald Trump. The US president has repeatedly joked about annexing Canada. He has also imposed steep tariffs on Canadian goods. And this has forced Carney to diversify his ties. And it's not just India. Canada is scaling up its relations with Europe. It is trying to fix its ties with China. Basically, Carney wants alternatives to fill the gap left by America. Of course, the reset isn't complete yet. We have to see what the next steps are. Clearly, trade is a natural first step to fix the relations. Let's see if both sides can build on it. Our next story is about the changing landscape of global currency markets. For decades, the US dollar has been the backbone of the system. But a mix of politics, trade, and strategy is now challenging that old order. And one currency, the Chinese Yuan, is starting to play a bigger role. The Yuan now makes up 8.5% of all global foreign exchange trades. It is the 5th most traded currency in the world, and it's slowly closing in on the British pound to take the 4th spot. But can it really challenge the dollar's dominance? Here's our report.
For decades, the global financial system has spoken one language: That language is the US dollar. It underpins trade. It anchors foreign reserves. It drives investment. And even today, nothing comes close to replacing it. But the world around it is changing. Trade routes are shifting. Politics is becoming more unpredictable. And countries are slowly beginning to explore alternatives. That shift is now starting to show in the numbers. It's not a sudden change, but it is a steady one, and it's picking up pace. The Chinese yuan now makes up 8.5% of all global foreign exchange trades. That's up from 7% in 2022. A decade ago, it was just 2.2%. It is now the fifth most traded currency in the world, and it is closing in on the British pound. There are reasons behind that steady rise. One is Beijing's deliberate policy moves. China has been trying to make the yuan more useful beyond its borders, and to give others more options and reduce their reliance on the greenback. It has built its own cross-border interbank payment system, or CIPS. Beijing has also recently launched a digital yuan hub in Shanghai. It has expanded currency swap deals with several central banks across the world, and it has been pushing for more trade and loan deals to be settled in yuan. Some of those results are already visible. In Kenya, the government converted 3 major infrastructure loans from dollars into yuan. Officials say this will save about $215 million a year in interest. It also reportedly reduces exposure to fluctuations in the US currency. This is just one example of how the yuan is appearing in global finance in new ways. Global uncertainty is another factor. The US dollar still dominates. It is used in 89% of all foreign exchange trades. But it has had a volatile year. The dollar index fell more than 10% in the first half of 2025. This was its biggest drop since 1973. In the second quarter of this year alone, the dollar has weakened 8%. So why is the US dollar suffering? Political shifts in Washington and new trade policies have unsettled markets. They've also changed how investors assess risk. Gold prices have surged to record highs this year. This volatility has reminded many countries how dependent they are on one single currency. And why is there a need to look for alternatives? But this is not a story of power changing. The euro still remains at the second position with 28.9% of trades. The yen is third with 16.8%. Sterling is fourth with 10.2%. And the yuan, even with its rise, still trails far behind the dollar. There are also limits to its growth. In cross-border payments, for example, the yuan's share reportedly fell from 4.7% last year to 2.9% in August. One reason is that China's capital controls still restrict how freely money moves in and out, and investors still see dollar assets as more stable and liquid. So what does this shift mean? It is not about a new global currency taking over. It is about having more choice. The dollar still anchors the system, and it will likely stay that way for the foreseeable future. But beneath that dominance, the global currency landscape is shifting.
Are rare earths the new oil? For decades, countries have built and maintained strategic reserves for oil. The reason? If supplies run out, it could spell Armageddon for countries and for their economies at large. Now, rare earths could be getting the same treatment, and 2 major economies are taking steps. I am talking about the US and India. Both nations are planning strategic reserves of rare earths. They are building stockpiles. Because without rare earths, modern life cannot function, and modern warfare is impossible. Rare earths are used everywhere, from smartphones to EVs to missile systems and radar systems. All of them need rare earths. That's why the governments are acting. Now let's start with the United States. The Pentagon has launched a buying spree. It's spending over $1 billion, and this is to secure critical minerals, including rare earths. These materials will be stored in strategic stockpiles. The stockpile will be held by the US military, and their use will be restricted. They can only be released under orders from the president or a top defense official. Now, what kind of minerals does the US plan to get? The list is long. It's cobalt, antimony, tantalum, scandium, and more. And all of them are crucial for America's defense industry, which is why they are being stockpiled. India too wants to build one. New Delhi plans to call it the National Critical Mineral Reserve, and the plan is still at an early stage, but the goal is clear. India wants to secure its supply chains and to protect itself from future disruptions. At the same time, India wants to boost domestic production, especially of rare earth magnets. Now, what are they? Rare earth magnets are a special kind of magnet. They are much stronger than ordinary ones. They are used in wind turbines, electric car motors, speakers, headphones, and even missile guidance systems. They are used wherever you need a strong, compact magnet. They are a necessity now. And that's why India wants to stockpile rare earths and use the same reserve to boost their production at home. The question is, what's driving this? Why are nations investing in stockpiles of rare earths? Now, there are three broad reasons. Number one, supply dependence on China. China dominates this industry. According to industry estimates, China refines almost all of the global rare earths. Even if the mining happens elsewhere, China controls the processing. In recent months, Beijing has started imposing export curbs on gallium, on germanium, and now on magnet technology. And that's why countries are worried, because China could cut off supplies during a future crisis. The second reason is national security. Rare earths are not just industrial materials. They power critical defense systems, missiles, radars, jets and satellites, even armor-piercing munitions, which is why the US military is now buying these minerals directly. It has already procured 3,000 tons of antimony, and it is used in the defense-grade ammunition. Now, the third factor is market volatility. Prices have been swinging, and this is because of shortages and export restrictions. For instance, antimony prices have gone up, and so have the prices of germanium and indium. A supply disruption could cripple entire industries. And that's why stockpiles are needed, to stabilize markets and ensure emergency supply. So what's the bigger picture? The global economy is changing. In the past, oil was the lifeblood of the economic growth. Today, minerals are the new lifeline. Without rare earths, there is no clean energy. There is no electric transport, and there is no modern warfare. That's why countries are stockpiling them, not for trade, but for national security. We have seen this before. Strategic oil reserves were built during oil crises. Today, the world faces a new kind of race, a race for technological supremacy, and rare earths are at the heart of it. The US and India are getting ready, and this could be just the beginning. A political storm is brewing in Madagascar. It is an island nation in the Indian Ocean, known for its stunning wildlife. But now it's gripped by unrest. For more than 2 weeks, tens of thousands have filled the streets of the capital, and even parts of the military are siding with the protesters. They demand President Andry Rajoelina must resign. The president insists a coup attempt is underway. He hasn't been seen in public for days. Here's our report on how Madagascar reached this crisis point.
You might know Madagascar for its wildlife, its lush forests, its animated movie. But today, this island nation is making headlines for a very different reason. It is teetering on the edge of a political crisis, and possibly a coup. For more than 2 weeks, the streets of its capital have been boiling. What started as anger over water and power cuts has become a full-blown uprising. Young people calling themselves Gen Z Madagascar are now leading the charge. Their message is blunt: Madagascar's president, Andry Rajoelina, must go. They want the Senate dissolved, and they want a government that actually works for them. The anger, it runs deep. For many Malagasy people, frustration has been building for years. 3/4 of the country's 30 million citizens live in poverty. Most don't have access to electricity. Public services in the country barely function. The country is rich in resources, but most citizens see little of that wealth. That frustration was already boiling beneath the surface. But when 2 politicians were arrested in September for planning a protest, it lit a fuse. What was meant to silence dissent only fueled it. The crackdown backfired, and the anger spilled onto the streets. According to the United Nations, at least 22 people have been killed in the first days. But the government has denied that number. Last week, officials claimed there were just 12 confirmed deaths. But the protests have only grown louder, bolder, and more defiant. The unrest has spread beyond the streets and into the barracks. Some soldiers have been openly siding with demonstrators. Members of CAPSAT, an elite unit, refused orders to shoot. This is the same unit that helped Rajoelina seize power in 2009. This time, instead of confronting the crowds, they marched alongside them. The unit even claimed to have taken control of the armed forces. It installed a new army chief who insisted this was not a coup.
As we have observed, it was a minister of the armed forces and also the former chief of staff who conducted the handover today. This demonstrates a genuine alternation within the military institution and proves that everything took place calmly and respectfully among the armed forces.
But President Rajoelina disagrees. He says there is an attempt to seize power illegally and by force. Yet he has not been seen in public since last week. But his government's response to the protests has been mixed. Rajoelina sacked his entire cabinet. He also appointed a new prime minister, a military general. Curfews were imposed and officials blamed foreign interference. At the same time, the president called for dialogue with protesters, but on the streets, the movement shows no sign of slowing. Their tactics mirror youth-led uprisings from Morocco and Kenya in Africa to Nepal, Bangladesh, Indonesia and Sri Lanka in Asia. They are organised online and crowdfunded, and they are united by frustration over corruption, inequality and broken promises. For now, the government has lost control of the streets. Madagascar's youth won't budge. The army is split, and the president's future hangs in the balance.
India's artificial intelligence story just got a major upgrade. Last week, an Anthropic CEO, Dario Amodei, had landed in India and met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He called India essential to the future of AI, and for good reason. From global labs setting up shop in Bengaluru and Delhi, to a government mission aiming to turn India into an AI superpower, the country is fast becoming the world's backroom for artificial intelligence. But can it move from building for others to building for itself? Can India lead the next digital revolution? Our next report tells you more.
Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, landed in India last week. He met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He spoke of India's billion-strong population and called the country's role in AI's future essential. But the photo op told a bigger story. Anthropic's planned Bengaluru office isn't just another foreign expansion. It shows that the world's AI labs now see India not as a market to sell to, but as a machine to power their next phase of growth. And Anthropic is not alone. OpenAI registered in India this year and plans its first New Delhi office soon. Perplexity and Google have made advanced features free for Indian users. It is betting that accessibility will build loyalty and perhaps a steady talent funnel. Decades ago, India's IT revolution built the digital plumbing for the world. Data processing for American banks, coding for European multinationals, tech support for everyone else. Now, the story is repeating with artificial intelligence. India's engineers label the data that trains global models. They fine-tune, debug, and deploy the tools that make AI usable. 1 in 4 AI projects on GitHub now originates from India. And with a developer base topping 15 million, the country has become the world's cheapest, most reliable engine for AI development. From Palo Alto's perspective, India isn't just a market. It's also a backroom that hums all day. But here's the problem. As global companies pour in, India's own AI talent pipeline is leaking. For every 10 AI job openings, there's only 1 qualified engineer. Only 15 to 20% of the tech workforce can actually work with AI. Generative AI, ML ops, data science have a shortage so deep it's reshaping hiring across the industry. The causes aren't hard to find. There is outdated college curricula, limited exposure to research-intensive work, and a near-obsessive focus on rote coding instead of problem-solving. And when India does produce top-tier AI talent, they often leave. Engineers and coders are lured by higher pay, better labs, and the prestige of working at Google DeepMind or OpenAI. So the Indian government has launched its most ambitious digital push yet, the India AI Mission. It aims to build sovereign AI infrastructure, fund homegrown model development, and integrate AI education into schools and universities. There's even talk of national data commons and an AI skills passport. It will be co-developed by Microsoft and Ernst & Young to certify millions of workers in job-ready AI skills. The hope is to close the skills gap, stem talent migration, and shift India's role from the AI world's backroom to its front office. And perhaps this time, India's story won't be about following but leading. From call centers to code bases, the country has powered every digital revolution that came its way. Now, with AI, it has the chance to shape one. If the 2000s were India's IT decade, the 2030s could well be its AI decade. If India can bridge its skills gap and back its own builders, the next wave of AI breakthroughs might not just happen in India. They could be made in India.
And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. Tel Aviv beach displays giant thank you sign for Trump after the release of hostages. Police clash with protesters in Ecuador as a national strike continues. And climate activists vandalize a Columbus painting on Spain's National Day. And finally, taking you back in history, on this day in 1792, workers laid the cornerstone of the White House. Designed by Irish-born architect James Hoban, the structure would serve as both the home and office of the US president. John and Abigail Adams were the first to move in 1800. Over the centuries, the White House has become the symbol of American leadership. Leaving you on that note, thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. West Asia hasn't seen a day like this for 2 years. Instead of cries, there are cheers. Instead of protests, there are celebrations. Instead of bombs, there are smiles. Because today, Hamas released the Israeli hostages in their custody.